Diesen Computer. Okay, so we are rolling. And so I'm so very grateful that you're making time today. Rebecca, can you help me with your family name? Because I'm really, really bad with names.
Well, it's Irish, and it was O'Fahey, but we pronounce it here in America Fahey.
Okay, all right. See, all of this is my challenge because I'm not very, let's say, I remember the faces and I remember, what we were talking about, but I'm really bad with names, and I'm so happy I remember my own. My name is Lydia Proschinger, and I'm here with Becky Fahey, who has now signed up for uh, or finished already the 7-week program. And I want to just say that this was not the first time we talked. This is not the first time she had a program with me. I think we did single sessions before, and then you decided to go into the 7 weeks program. I really enjoy working with you, and I want people out there who also are looking for something like this to understand a little bit more what it is that we're doing. And because there's such a vast variety of different coaches out there, I want to crystallize out for them what's really setting me apart from everybody else, because it's understandable that you get into a overwhelm when you look for somebody, and and it just has to click, it has to fit, it has to make sense.
Right.
So why don't you start with a little bit of an introduction of yourself, and then just explain a little bit more as to how your development went from when we started first in 2012 until today.
Okay. Hello, I'm Becky. I'm an epidemiologist, which means I have a medical doctorate and a PhD in public health. And really, my focus is medical writing, integrative medicine, and I love energy medicine. I love EFT, the emotional freedom techniques, and the matrix imprinting that you do. And what's special about you is that you incorporate all that into everyday conversation. I've had EFT sessions, I've had, matrix, all those matrix classes, well, courses with those, and it's more metaphysical based. We did metaphysical work, but it felt like conversation, and it made it more real, and it made me better able to tackle the difficult challenges. The deep emotional wounds just seemed to flow out, and I knew that we could work with them. Because previously in 2012, that's really when I'd started with energy medicine, although I've been meditating for, 20 some years, because I was always a natural athlete. So those kind of things always came good, easy to me, and meditation was a natural progression. And I think when we first started working, it was because of my board exams that I wasn't able to pass them, and that I'd been in 5 car accidents. And as an athlete, to lose that ability was what also inspired me recently to write my book, which brought us up to the present. And that's why, I wanted to do the 7-week course, because I was in trouble pulling it together. Although I took classes with the, other people about writing my book, the way you packaged just the whole aspect of the book, being a part of myself, and was just different. I wanted to call the place where I actually got my little certificate, and I still want to do that and be like, wow, you need her to come and teach a class about the book writing, because this is what they need. Because I went through all the semantics of it, the chapters, and I had characters, and I had all those things put in my book, but I didn't have the heart and soul of my book. I didn't have the heart and soul of myself in my life. Somehow I'd lost that. And I remember through some of our sessions, I get a glimpse of myself, and it'd be like, there I am. Yes. And I never really expected that. I was having difficulty in my marriage, and, finding jobs or a purpose, with all these degrees, and, all this pressure to be, super doctor. Right. And, it's kind of funny, because everything that we talked about, my parents, I have a really good relationship with my parents. They reflect back to me. you know, everything that we talked about, and I would talk to them about, oh, yes, of course. Oh, well, that makes sense that you would have, you know, stopped taking care of yourself as a mother and a wife and, you know, and then, but the way that you do it is weird for a mom, you know, to, you know, the way you stop taking care of yourself, but you make it, the issues that you have to face to get back on track and back to you, you make easy. It's like a breeze, you know, it's like a fresh breeze. And then you have all those little antidotes and you're so attentive in sessions. It's like, it's me, you know, that type of focus. My mom has that too, right? It's just that the empathy, the actual attention to the things that I needed, especially when I didn't see what I needed to work through. And I did have some notes, so I didn't want to get too much off track. But before, that I was stuck in this helplessness. I was, you know, going in and out of shame. Although I'd had other sessions with that, I really struggled with my daily routine. And, you know, and you taught me a way to do that. We did the ritual where I actually called back pieces of myself, and that was fun. I mean, it was a challenge to find some of that stuff, but that was part of the fun. And, you know, I've had a lot of issues because of the mold, you know, and that to me, the strength that you gave me, I was able to be in a group for shame on Facebook and talk about it. And especially about the mold, I'm in a couple groups there where other women have emailed me on Facebook and been like, oh my God, I can't believe you're talking about this mold and, you know, addressing these. Because when you live in mold, you feel like everybody thinks you're crazy because you're so sick and you got to pretend that you're well. And it's this weird thing, you know, like it's not okay not to feel good. Mm-hmm. And that was really hard. And unless you have that core empathy for yourself and you're into, hey, I can take care of myself. You know, these women that were texting me were like, you know, my husband still doesn't support me, you know, and it's crushing her. And I'm like, yeah, but what about you? Because that's what made the difference for me. Forget about what he thinks for a minute and everyone else. And what do you think? And what do you feel about yourself? And what's really going on? Of course, I had confirmation from, you know, people that worked on my house, professionals working with mold and stuff, but it still didn't change that underlying, just that animosity that I felt from my partner because I was, you know, sick. But our 7 weeks, boy, that's totally gone. I actually, you know, have a little bit of sadness for that woman that was stuck in mold and stuck in that place. And, you know, I could love her and lift her up now as opposed to live there, which was pretty bad. It wasn't great. But I'm out of that now. And, you know, the plethora of stuff we worked on, I mean, just about my book and, you know, that we worked through, really what I outlined to you was the focus of my book. Mm-hmm. And it felt so wonderful to actually work through everything that I needed to do that I wanted to show to others that I could do, mm-hmm. but in deeper levels than I ever thought was possible from myself. That you helped me get. Like, I was at level 1 or 2 and we went to 8 or 9. And we went past that to like 11 a few times, right? I went deeper and worked harder than I even thought. I thought I was working hard before, but maybe I was working hard, but I wasn't, you know, I didn't even want to say what we did was work. It was more like play. Yeah. And that was the difference. You know, I was working really hard, but then you taught me how to play with that and not be afraid of the unknown. And my intuition and my creativeness have just been so abundant. I mean, I've made like 20 different crochet things and finished stuff and started a couple more businesses. And, you know, it's just it's been really wonderful. So I think I'm coming up to the present day, and then we'll go into the future. Presently, I did have a review session, and it was some stuff for my daughter. She's 8. Her name's Nina. So I could help her better. You know, I really want her to grow up and not turn 40 or 50 and be like, oh, I got to work on this stuff now. I like for her to grow up and know I work on it in the moment, you know, or I can work on it later today. But, you know, to realize that when things happen, it's okay to take time for yourself in that moment and work through it. And we did that, but what was weird, I made it through the Mercury retrograde, and, you know, I did really well there, but after that retrograde, it's like, whoop, slipped on that banana peel. But I'd also been crying. So I had been, I mean, this is a really deep issue from like 3 years old, and had to do with trust and bullying, which has been an issue for me, especially around the mold, right? Really difficult. But I had just been crying, and I thought, oh, that's good. You know, it's going to be August 15th. Everything is going to change, you know, the energy and stuff. But then when I had this session with you, and it was like, oh, no, we have to just address it. And I'm like, oh, I didn't do that. I just, you know, allowed it to kind of come out on its own. But when we addressed it and worked through it, I had forgotten that I could do that. So it's like you know, the 7 weeks, absolutely wonderful. And took me to a place and an energy, the vortex, that energy, that strong energy that I didn't think I had. But now anytime I want to, or I forget, I can go back there. But what that lesson taught me with my daughter, a review about my daughter and my own energy, was the daily routine is so important. And that intent for the day. And the intent for, I went out last night and wrote, did research and calculated physics for my manuscript that I'm submitting, which we also worked on. And I don't think I would have been able to do that, to even take 2 hours away from my family. Mm-hmm. And for me, would have been unheard of. That would have been, you know, that would have happened every 6 weeks. Not once a week can I just go out for 2 hours and have some tea and work on a project. And I know that's small, but it's huge in the fact that I'm also working on other projects and I'm making progress, and it feels good. And the serendipity that's happening in my life as a result of this work we've done. I mean, you know, and I have worked with other people. You know, I am a doctor, so I do have, you know, a lot of different aspects of this work that I don't like. One of the big things, not you, that I thought was really an issue was the way that, so like after a session, the things that your mind does to yourself. And a lot of times in the past, I would go a little bit crazy because I wouldn't know what to do with all these talents, whatever's emerging. And you always, always, always gave me feedback about it in the session, telling me what could happen, how to deal with it. But you were always available either via, you know, Facebook Messenger or email. Although we did discuss Facebook Messenger needs to be, hey, I emailed you, more than, you know, yes. You want to put all that out there on Facebook. Because it's in Messenger, they're still looking. But that made the difference. That gave me the support that I wasn't going to go dip below ground level, which never really happened. But the fear of, you know, having that nervous breakdown mm-hmm. was always there. And my mom would say, you're not going to have the nervous breakdown. You're still going to have to. Life's still going to go on. It's never coming, right? But I didn't get it. If she would have added, you know, all that stuff that you added about, you know, because you're safe. Because we did that first. We made me safe first before we did anything else. And that was so easy to go back to. I mean, it wasn't so easy to go back to at first. And sometimes it still is hard, but it's always there. Mm-hmm. Like I had picked up some, you know, some negative stuff and, you know, had been working on me, and I couldn't go to sleep. So I had sit down and meditated for my little crystals there, and just addressed it and was able to, you know, flip it around. And like you said, for every negative thought, I had 3 or 4 positive ones. And I was really nice to my negative thoughts and loving and caring to them. And then it just released. It was like, oops, maybe you haven't been doing your dailies. And when you're around negative people, if you don't release that stuff on a regular basis, you kind of, you know, pick up a lot of it, and it changes the way you feel about yourself. And to me, that was a big issue that I'd had that I hadn't addressed. Although we went over it, I was focused more on my doings than being, I think. So if I do it in that order, okay, how am I? I'm good. Okay, and then what are my things I have to do? But when I get caught up with what do I have to do? What do I have to do? What do I have to do? There's always that, oh, I got to get back to being me, because that was the problem before. But I didn't have the safe place that I have now. And the big thing about my book is I wanted people to bring, this rich spiritual life, in my head. And, in my imagination. It's wonderful there. I love it there. It's a beautiful garden. And my book is you want to bring that garden into your daily life. And we really did that. And, we moved here to North Carolina, and it's funny because I didn't have a house before, and we have these beautiful gardens. And this was the first year, the first summer, spring and summer, that I got to actually see the flowers and all the foliage change color. And that kind of, reminded me about my garden and keeping it, keeping my life and my personal space me, as opposed to taking other people's garbage or their negative thoughts about themselves and making that my purpose. I just need to take care of my garden, and that spreads out to everyone else.
And you know the difference between a garden that's well tended and a garden that's neglected. You see it immediately, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, huge. Yes. Yeah. Even, my neighbor fell down the steps and tore Achilles tendon, and she has a little garden on the side, and it's overgrown. And I went over to see how she was doing and give her my number just in case. And that's the first thing she said to me. Not even, she didn't even tell me about her accident first. She's like, "Oh, my garden." So I'm going to ask her and text her and see if she wants my guy to kind of clean it out for her, maybe, because she can't get out there. She's in a wheelchair because she's. But you're right, and it is the first thing that you recognize about a person's house or home. We have the homeowners association here, but I think that my book is kind of like that. It's kind of like your own little homeowners association for your garden. What do you need to do to keep it tended and nice? Because that's the being part. And if we don't have that, then we can't do anything else.
Yeah, I think your mind and body is your house where you first live in. And it better be a nice place to feel comfortable, to be able to do what you want to do.
Yeah, to be safe there, and with the mold, and, I didn't have a lot of problems until my 30s, of course, that's when you start having problems, 30s, 40s. But, yeah, it's a wonderful thing, but I did want to move into the, I could talk about this for hours, but the now part, right? The future part. Okay, I have it written down somewhere, I thought. Well, I guess the biggest part was the birth, of myself, getting back to myself. And, I had visions and stuff during my meditations, and I have those a lot. As a young kid, I was taught visualization as a runner, and so all those things.
You're an empath also. You're highly empathic, so you receive a lot of input every day.
Right. Oh, yes, for sure. Yes. And, my mother's a midwife, so that just kind of connected me to all kinds of things. And, my dad's really connected to, himself and his life. I always thought my parents were, I feel that they're like saints. And, if I say that around the wrong kind of people, they really get offended, like, "Oh, they're not saints." I'm like, well, do you know what a saint is? First of all, a saint is someone that lives the example. They're the person that lives in the light, and they have flaws. I mean, they're not perfect people. I'm sure Mother Teresa, she had a flaw somewhere. I mean, I can't think of one, but because why would you want to? She's so awesome. But I just meant that they lived by example. There wasn't a lot of lecturing. There wasn't a lot of issues. It was, this is the person you need to be. This is the person I am. This is just what, this is the example. They weren't, it wasn't, my mom didn't lecture me about how to be, a caring, loving individual. She just was one. And that's just what I experienced. And my husband said this to me the other day. He's like, "I know you guys, you fought all the time." I was like, "We didn't fight all the time. It's just that fighting wasn't a fear. I didn't have a fear of confrontation because we were encouraged to say how we felt. You hurt my feelings. I didn't like that." I said, even if they meant to do it, we still made up, especially if they meant to do it. Did we, talk through it and make up? And we still fight and we still argue, but there's a level of respect there, a level of unconditional love that goes once you begin to, work with people. As a kid, I did this, right? So confrontation to me was always a good thing. And it was always a good thing if you got your feelings hurt to say stuff. But as an adult, not so much.
Right. Well, you have all those moments where you learn to grow and to communicate in a way that you bring your point across, and yes, feelings do get hurt, but that doesn't mean that you can't say sorry afterwards or just let it go. It's
Right. Right.
it's a process that I also teach my children, that when you get into an argument, that it has to be about the argument, about the object of the argument, not about the person. So if you're confronted with the difference of opinion, it's the opinion that's different. That's not saying that you have to hate each other for the rest of your life, right?
Right. Yeah, it's not a personal vendetta. It's a
Exactly.
it's 7 people living in a small house together.
Absolutely. And if you're living your sacred soul purpose, you're definitely going to cross a lot of people
Oh
because
yes.
not of your opinion.
Yes. That's okay. You don't have to like my opinion. I can still like you or respect you if you don't like my opinion. Well, I get a lot of that anyway as an epidemiologist, right? Even though I know you're right, but I love Diet Coke, and, I know it's poison, but I can't stop drinking it, and I will defend, I'd rather stop living than to stop drinking Diet Coke. Okay, keep drinking it. They're not ready. They're not ready. But, maybe they'll get there. But I want to talk a little bit more about your program and how, in my book, I struggled with incorporating the chakra system and finding, a system that was, universal, and that, because they're all so different.
Mm-hmm.
And then you would hook me up with an interactive video that I could put in my book and share with others. And that made me go back and put the different chakras in each chapter. And boy, did that finally make the book come alive. It was like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, there's this hole there. I have to put it in there. And I'm glad I did, because I've been sharing the first chapter of my book, and wonderful. I mean, like, I've even had criticism that was wonderful. Can you, instead of, you just gave a little bit here, can you talk a little bit more about the mold and what happened there? So I went back in and I added more about, what that meant, because she's like, I feel like there's a hole here and I want to know what happened.
Yeah.
And this was like one of my mom's friends that she was, another nurse practitioner that she was sharing it with. It's just wonderful, the feedback, the serendipity. And, I know you use that, is it monomer? Is that what that's called?
Yeah, it's a moniker. I think a lot of times clients would say that things are happening because of the way that we work together, and it feels like it's a coincidence, and I don't believe in coincidences. So I was looking for a word, and I'm not a native English speaker, so people would say, yeah, it's serendipity. I'm like, what is that?
Is there a German word for that?
Not really, no.
Oh, okay, interesting. I might have to go to Google later and see if it translates. Not that I know. I mean, I know a tiny, tiny bit of German, but I had a class in college. To go would be better. You learn more there. The food's good, so it's really delicious.
So
it's so good.
Future projects are lined up. Your book is lined up. I think we were talking about a card set that's lined up.
Yes.
And an online program that's sort of just to sign in and basically get the idea of how to apply the book in your daily life. Is that what is intended next?
Yes. I already have the websites. Actually, we have a double focus. Let me just write down something here before I forget. I have the book, and I have the coaching business, and that's the medical writing, the integrative medicine. That's where I put a lot of my medical stuff in there. And I'm going to create the online class kind of thing, and like the access to my first chapter of my book as I finish it. And I probably should have that done in the next couple weeks, but the sports medicine focus is kind of coming into view now, because I'm working through all the physics and the videos and analyzing the pictures for this injury prevention, because next weekend, Labor Day weekend, I'm going to meet my partner, the professional softball pitcher, and, iron out some future things with him, because, he's the actual pitcher. Although I do some of the activities. He's The athletes. So, and we're going to do a little bit of research there because we discovered there's no injury prevention data on professional men's softball players.
Mm-hmm.
And that's really our kind of our control group for the young girls that are getting injured. And this is huge, working on this manuscript. It's been 5 years, and I've been spun around with everyone else's needs. And until we did the 7 weeks, and, you know, then I, of course, which I love because I feed everything to my mom, and then she reflects back all the positive. She's like, just get the manuscript done the way you want it done and what you think. They're going to change it anyway 1,000 ways.
Yeah.
That when we write, which is fine because then I'm corresponding with the people that know what I need to do to put out there. You know, and my dad has been a wonderful influence, and my partner as well. But at the same time, they're not the scientists. They're not the one that's going to get it published.
Mm-hmm.
And that was huge. And even, you know, with my book, it's me. I'm my special focus, my special outlook. That's what we need. That's why I'm doing it. And that's what I haven't been using. And things weren't getting done. But now they're getting done, and it's huge. It feels so good inside. Like my heart is big and full, and there's no fear. I mean, there might be anticipation, but, you know, there's not a fear. And I'm sure I will have fears, but now I know how to address them and work through them. And, you know, and I can get
the level of trust and, let's say, navigation through the unknown part.
Right. You learn how to get through the rapids. You know, it's like, you know, you start with level 1, and now we're up to level 5. And I feel fine. I mean, I'm from West Virginia, so we have these, you know, raging rapids there that you can ride.
Okay.
I've only done it once, but, you know, it's exhilarating and exciting, and, you know, you're afraid, especially if you can't swim, because when I went with people who couldn't swim, and, you know, they had the big life jackets on, and I'm like, you know, that was amazing for me. You know, that's kind of how I felt, you know, with this, like being the one that didn't swim, but you gave me the life jacket, so I was good, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
the ones that couldn't swim, they did have a death grip on the, you know, on the handles. But, you know, you learn to go through it, and it's exhilarating. And, you know, part of this unknown is the gold, is what we're really looking for. And it's just, it's right there within us. And if we don't, you know, if I don't come to people like, you know, yourself and get this inspiration to get it out there, as an epidemiologist, to me, this work is more important than any medication, any doctor's visit, you know, any blood draw, any medication they can give you. You have to work on these emotional core issues, and this self-reliance, this intuition, this love of self has to come first. Mm-hmm. Nothing out there is going to fix anything wrong with you until you fix this. And that's kind of the purpose of my book. You know, people were asking me all the time, how do I lose weight? You know, you're a health coach, you do this. I'm like, work on your emotional issues. What do you mean?
Right. Well, this is a niche that many people run into because it's a lot of money. But I am not in the business of making return visits and installing a spinning door where people come in, get some kind of relief, and then come back again. That's not my approach to working with people.
Right.
I want to make sure they feel empowered. They have a clear definition of who they are. They want to lead in their field. They want to become the soul leader in their sacred soul purpose. Right. And I really want to basically attract those people who wish to walk part of that path with me, so that they have the benefit of clearing it, and make sure that when you come into that, let's say, that darkness, when you feel those strange emotions, those dark emotions, those shadows, those places where you're uncomfortable, the pain, all of the shame, all of those definitely uncomfortable places, that you are not alone, and that you can release that energy and then come out on the other side. This is why I called my program ECLIPSE, because the dark place does not say that it's really bad. It's part of the process, and it's necessary to clear away whatever was before, so that you can go over into that feeling of light and luminousness and become fully who you are, established in your field. And that this darkness does not inspire so much fear, and you don't feel alone, that you don't feel let down in that part.
Yeah, like you're able to face the darkness now
Yes.
without the fear and the trepidation. And
Yes.
it's almost like, it's like 7 weeks, but, and I would recommend the 7 weeks, but it's almost like chiropractic care and going to the dentist. You need it 2 to 3 times a year minimum. That's what I'm thinking. I'm going to recommend in my book, the 7 week session. And it's, and how you go to a good chiropractor is he's like, I don't want you to come back. Do the exercises, do the things you need to do to get strong. And then, come back to me if you get hurt again. But, be strong in your life physically. That's how you know. And I have a friend, he's like, I'm going to have a chapter in your book, right? Because he encouraged me like you did, but the physical part, do these little tiny exercises, like to your posture and just, and that's, you're like, do the daily routine and set your intent before you go to bed. And there's a million little things that you gave me. I wish I had like little flashcards. Flash through them, like maybe that'll be my tarot deck, is all those little helper things, that help you in the moment. And the most I could say to anyone interested in working with you would be that they will not look back and think of it was a wrong decision. We have worked through, and I love cycles, we worked through 7 years now. And when we were talking before, I realized that, we started in 2012, it's now 2019. And I feel like my complete cycle, I understand now, the complete spiral. Even though I feel like there's still some dark places in there, I'm excited to go there and figure out the next part of it, like this book and, my manuscript and the next part. I'm ready for that. I'm setting up that platform. And before, I was barely able to get things done. I was like running around with a chicken, my head cut off. And not in a good place. But now I'm like, and I'm encouraging others now, and I'm standing up in my life, and I was able to do this video, and that kind of feels wonderful. It's just been a really wonderful experience, and I'd really like to thank you. It's been heartwarming and just unbelievably wonderful.
All right. Well, I definitely want to see you back, but not too quickly, not too rushed, because what we worked on obviously has some kind of gestation period where you have to make sense of it and apply it and improve.
Yes.
I'm always there, but the fact is, I believe that sometimes the tendency is to fall in love with learning, and then the implementation falls short. So
Right.
the being part and the doing part and the having part, they have to also be in a kind of flow, so that in the moment where you learn something, you implement it, and then you walk with it and you do what it is that you implement, and then whatever it is that you're setting as your pricing comes out and comes back to you, and you have to be ready to receive. And that readiness to receive comes with the implementation. So you give and then you take. It's
Right.
a very it's a fluid kind of process, and a lot of people get stuck in that so who do I want to be process. And it's amazing how many times I've already been able to introduce the manifestation process to people in such a way that they have the reins in their own hands,
Right.
and actually become the jockey on their horse, not the jockey that already runs in front of the horse saying, I'm already finished, when are you coming?
Right.
So because our thought processes are so quick and the manifestation process is a little bit delayed, we always have to make sure that we don't fall short of that patience that comes with trusting that things fall into place.
Right.
So thank you so much for being here today, and for helping people understand what it is that we are doing.
Yes, shed a little light.
What I really love about you is that you're, as a doctor, you know the physics of it, and it's, you know, it's part of that process that I'm learning, because I'm not a physicist, but I'm learning it as we are doing, and so I learned lots of things from you as well, and I just love working with you. I enjoyed thoroughly 7 weeks with you, and obviously also the time that we had just one-off sessions, but I'm not doing those anymore.
Well, because I can understand that, you know, I mean, really, even like I almost would, if I was you, add another thing like we did that session, because it seemed like after the 7 weeks, some of the really dark stuff came up. And although you were available for that, I was like, oh, wow, that would have been nice to. But I faced it and I was okay, but still kind of like, ooh, that little dark, you know, like maybe like a follow-up. But, you know, a follow-up 3-hour session. We did do the VIP sessions and stuff, and those really helped, because that was a moment that I really needed that type of guidance in the moment. But, you know, at the same time, I would say a follow-up session, but I want 7 more weeks. I think that's when I'm ready for the next thing to go. I want that type of support. I don't get that anywhere else in the world. I mean, my parents are wonderful and everything, but it's not listening to every little detail and your knowledge about, I mean, just the publishing world and, you know, what it takes to do those kind of things. And, you know, even as a CEO, because I am the CEO of several companies, my husband's included, right? I do all his stuff. So I mean, he does the actual work. I just do all the other stuff. It adds a credibility to the way you feel and how you present yourself now. So naturally, I can actually use the word CEO and epidemiologist and writer and mean it.
Yeah.
And, you know, feel safe there. Where before it was kind of like, yeah, I'm this. Now I'm like, I'm this. And it's a big difference. And I feel it in my soul, my whole entire being. And it made a complete difference. And I'm happy that I did it, and I'll be doing it again.
There's always growth. There's always potential for more growth. We are never stopping to learn, and I definitely am a voracious reader. I love reading and I love learning. But as I said, we are in a time in our world history where that becomes so readily available that you have to make sure that you really sift through what it is that you want to be around with, because you're so easily distracted by things. And so when I talk about clearing your field or owning your field,
yes,
it really is about that part that says, this is me, this is my sacred soul purpose, and everything else out.
right.
I don't want that to be disturbed by anything, because your manifestation depends on it.
Right. No, yeah, I don't want to work on any of those things that aren't mine to work on. It's important.
Exactly, because otherwise you become the donkey on the cart of somebody else. You don't want that to happen.
Right.
So, not that I don't like donkeys; they're adorable creatures. But in our let's say in our establishing of that business and running it and being in it as a leader, you have to be able to inspire and be that example that you were talking about, that lives what it does.
Right.
So, for that matter is the creation of my program, and for that matter, I'm here to accompany those who wish to be accompanied. So thank you very much for coming today again. I enjoyed talking to you today, and I will look forward to talking to you next. And those of you who are actually tuning in to this video, I'm encouraging you to reach out whenever you feel like, yeah, this is it.
Me too. Reach out.
All right. Have a wonderful day, and I see you soon.
All right.